Chapter 16 of The Last Galley, Impressions and Tales. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Aaron James Walker. The Last Galley, Impressions and Tales by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. The Lord of Falconbridge, Part 2 of 3. In the course of the next fortnight, the lady made several surprise visits to see that her champion was being properly prepared for the contest which lay before him. At the most unexpected moments she would burst into the training quarters, but never again had she to complain of any slackness upon his part or that of his trainer. With long bouts of the gloves, with 30-mile walks, with mile runs at the back of a mail cart with a bit of blood between the shafts, with interminable series of jumps with a skipping rope, he was sweated down until his trainer was able to proudly proclaim that the last ounce of tallow is off him, and he is ready to fight for his life. Only once was the lady accompanied by anyone upon these visits of inspection. Upon this occasion a tall young man was her companion. He was graceful in figure, aristocratic in his bearing, and would have been strikingly handsome had it not been for some accident which had shattered his nose and broken all the symmetry of his features. He stood in silence with moody eyes and folded arms, looking at the splendid torso of the prize-fighter as, stripped to the waist, he worked with his dumbbells. "Don't you think he will do?" said the lady. The young swell shrugged his shoulders. "I don't like it, cara mia. I can't pretend that I like it."
"You must like it, George. I have set my very heart on it."
"It is not English, you know. Lucrezia Borgia in medieval Italy. Woman's love and woman's hatred are always the same. But this particular manifestation of it seems to me out of place in 19th century London."
"Is not a lesson needed?"
Yes, but one would think there were other ways."
"You tried another way. What did you get out of that?"
The young man smiled rather grimly as he turned up his cuff and looked at a puckered hole in his wrist. "Not much, certainly," said he.
"You've tried and failed?"
"Yes, I must admit it."
"What else is there? The law?"
"Good gracious, no."
"Then it is my turn, George, and I won't be balked."
"I don't think anyone is capable of balking you, cara mia. Certainly I, for one, should never dream of trying, but I don't feel as if I could cooperate."
"I never asked you to."
"No, you certainly never did. You are perfectly capable of doing it alone. I think, with your leave, if you have quite done with your prize-fighter, we will drive back to London. I would not for the world miss Goldini in the opera." So they drifted away, he frivolous and dilettante. She was with her face as set as fate, leaving the fighting men to their business. And now the day came when Cribb was able to announce to his employer that his man was as fit as science could make him. "I can do no more, ma'am. He's fit to fight for a kingdom. Another week would see him stale." The lady looked Spring over with the eye of a connoisseur.
"I think he does you credit,"
she said at last.
"Today is Tuesday. He will fight the day after tomorrow."
"Very good, ma'am. Where shall he go?"
"I will tell you exactly, and you will please take careful note of all that I say. You, Mr. Cribb, will take your man down to the Golden Cross Inn at Charing Cross by 9 o'clock on Wednesday morning. He will take the Brighton coach as far as Tunbridge Wells, where he will light at the Royal Oak Arms. There he will take such refreshment as you advise before a fight. He will wait at the Royal Oak Arms until he receives a message by word or by letter, brought him by a groom in a mulberry livery. This message will give him his final instructions."
"And am I not to come?"
"No,"
said the lady. "But surely, ma'am," he pleaded, "I may come as far as Tunbridge Wells? It's hard on a man to train a cove for a fight and then to leave him."
"It can't be helped. You are too well known. Your arrival would spread all over the town, and my plans might suffer. It is quite out of the question that you should come."
"Well, I'll do what you tell me, but it's main hard." "I suppose," said Spring, "you would have me bring my fighting shorts and my spiked shoes?"
"No, you will kindly bring nothing whatever which may point to your trade. I would have you wear just those clothes in which I saw you first, such clothes as any mechanic or artisan might be expected to wear."
Tom Cribb's blank face had assumed an expression of absolute despair. "No second, no clothes, no shoes. It don't seem regular. I give you my word, ma'am, I feel ashamed to be mixed up in such a fight. I don't know as you can call the thing a fight where there is no second. It's just a scramble, nothing more. I've gone too far to wash my hands of it now, but I wish I had never touched it." In spite of all professional misgivings on the part of the champion and his pupil, the imperious will of the woman prevailed, and everything was carried out exactly as she had directed. At 9 o'clock, Tom Spring found himself upon the box seat of the Brighton coach, and waved his hand in good-bye to burly Tom Cribb, who stood the admired of a ring of waiters and ostlers upon the doorstep of the Golden Cross. It was in the pleasant season when summer is mellowing into autumn, and the first golden patches are seen amid the beeches and the ferns. The young country-bred lad breathed more freely when he had left the weary streets of Southwark and Lewisham behind him, and he watched with delight the glorious prospect as the coach, whirled along by 6 dapple greys, passed by the classic grounds of Knowle, or after crossing Riverside Hill skirted the vast expanse of the Weald of Kent. Past Tonebridge School went the coach, and on through Southborough, until it wound down a steep, curving road with strange outcrops of sandstone beside it, and halted before a great hostelry, bearing the name which had been given him in his directions. He descended, entered the coffee-room, and ordered the underdone steak which his trainer had recommended. Hardly had he finished it when a servant with a mulberry coat and a peculiarly expressionless face entered the apartment. "Beg your pardon, sir, are you Mr. Spring? Mr. Thomas Spring of London?" "That is my name, young man." "Then the instructions which I had to give you are that you wait for 1 hour after your meal. After that time you will find me in a phaeton at the door, and I will drive you in the right direction." The young pugilist had never been daunted by any experience which had befallen him in the ring. The rough encouragement of his backers, the surge and shouting of the multitude, and the sight of his opponent had always cheered his stout heart and excited him to prove himself worthy of being the center of such a scene. But this loneliness and uncertainty were deadly. He flung himself down on the horsehair couch and tried to doze, but his mind was too restless and excited. Finally he rose and paced up and down the empty room. Suddenly he was aware of a great rubicund face, which surveyed him from round the angle of the door. Its owner, seeing that he was observed, pushed forward into the room. "I beg pardon, sir," said he, "but surely I have the honor of talking to Mr. Thomas Spring?" "At your service," said the young man. "Bless me, I am vastly honored to have you under my roof. Cordery is my name, sir, landlord of this old-fashioned inn. I thought that my eyes could not deceive me. I am a patron of the ring, sir, in my own humble way, and was present at Mousley in September last, when you beat Jack Stringer of Rawcliffe. A very fine fight, sir, and very handsomely fought. If I may make bold to say so, I have a right to an opinion, sir, for there's never been a fight for many a year in Kent or Sussex that you wouldn't find Joe Cordery at the ringside. Ask Mr. Gregson at the Chop House in Holborn, and he'll tell you about old Joe Cordery. By the way, Mr. Spring, I suppose it is not business that has brought you down into these parts. Anyone can see with half an eye that you are trained to a hair. I'd take it very kindly if you would give me the office." It crossed Spring's mind that if he were frank with the landlord, it was more than likely that he would receive more information than he could give. He was a man of his word, however, and he remembered his promise to his employer. "Just a quiet day in the country, Mr. Cordery, that's all." "Dear me, I had hoped there was a mill in the wind. I've a nose for these things, Mr. Spring, and I thought I had a whiff of it. But of course you should know best. Perhaps you will drive round with me this afternoon and view the hop gardens, just the right time of year, sir?" Tom Spring was not very skilled in deception, and his stammering excuses may not have been very convincing to the landlord, or finally persuaded him that his original supposition was wrong. In the midst of the conversation, however, the waiter entered with the news that a phaeton was waiting at the door. The innkeeper's eyes shone with suspicion and eagerness. "I thought you said you knew no one in these parts, Mr. Spring." "Just one kind friend, Mr. Cordery, and he has sent his gig for me. It's likely that I will take the night coach to town, but I'll look in after an hour or two and have a dish of tea with you." Outside, the mulberry servant was sitting behind a fine black horse in a phaeton, which had 2 seats in front and 2 behind. Tom Spring was about to climb up beside him, when the servant whispered that his directions were that he should sit behind. Then the phaeton whirled away, while the excited landlord, more convinced than ever that there was something in the wind, rushed into his stable yard with shrieks to his ostlers, and in a very few minutes was in hot pursuit, waiting at every crossroad until he could hear tidings of a black horse in a mulberry livery. The phaeton meanwhile drove in the direction of Crowborough. Some miles out it turned from the highroad into a narrow lane spanned by a tawny arch of beech trees. Through this golden tunnel a lady was walking, tall and graceful, her back to the phaeton. As it came abreast of her, she stood aside and looked up, while the coachman pulled up the horse. "I trust that you were at your best," said she, looking very earnestly at the prize-fighter. "How do you feel?" "Pretty tidy, ma'am, I thank you."
I'll get up beside you, Johnson. We have some way to go. You will drive through the lower warren, and then take the lane which skirts the gravel hangar. I will tell you where to stop. Go slowly, for we are not due for 20 minutes.
Feeling as if the whole business was some extraordinary dream, the young pugilist passed through a network of secluded lanes until the phaeton drew up at a wicket gate which led into a plantation of firs, choked with a thick undergrowth. Here the lady descended and beckoned Spring to alight.
"Wait down the lane,"
said she to the coachman.
"We shall be some little time. Now, Mr. Spring, will you kindly follow me? I have written a letter which makes an appointment."
She passed swiftly through the plantation by a tortuous path, then over a stile and past another wood, loud with the deep chuckling of pheasants. At the farther side was a fine rolling park, studded with oak trees and stretching away to a splendid Elizabethan mansion, with balustraded terraces athwart its front. Across the park and making for the wood a solitary figure was walking. The lady gripped the prizefighter by the wrist.
"That is your man,"
said she. End of chapter 16.